The sun was beginning to set over Los Angeles, casting a golden glow over the city. Keanu Reeves leaned against the side of his trailer, taking a deep breath. After months of shooting on location, he was finally wrapping up his latest film and heading back home. The production had been grueling but rewarding, and he was looking forward to some much-needed rest. Before we dive into this heartwarming story, we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever rescued an animal in need or witnessed an act of kindness that changed a life? Whether it was saving a stray, helping a lost pet find its home, or simply showing compassion to an animal in distress, share your story in the comments below. Your experiences remind us that kindness has the power to make a real difference. Now, let's get into the story. As he climbed onto his motorcycle, he relished the thought of riding through the familiar streets of LA. The city had always been a place of inspiration for him, both in his work and personal life. The roads, the people, the energy, it all felt like home. He started his bike and rode off, enjoying the cool evening breeze as he navigated through the bustling traffic, weaving between cars with the ease of an experienced rider. Just as he was passing through a quieter neighborhood, his peaceful ride was shattered by the sudden screech of tires and a loud, pained yelp. His eyes widened as he saw a biker speeding recklessly down the road. In an instant, the rider had hit a small, scruffy dog, sending it flying into a ditch before disappearing around a corner without stopping. Keanu's heart pounded as he immediately pulled over and ran toward the injured animal. His breath caught in his throat when he saw the dog, a small, malnourished mutt with patchy fur, whimpering in pain. Blood stained its fur, and one of its legs was bent at an unnatural angle. It was clear the dog had been struggling even before the accident. Its ribs were visible beneath its thin coat, a clear sign of starvation and neglect. "You're going to be okay, buddy," Keanu murmured, carefully wrapping the trembling dog in his jacket. He could feel the animal's shallow breathing against his chest as he held it close and carried it to his motorcycle. The dog barely had the strength to lift its head, but as Keanu cradled it, the warmth of human kindness seemed to soothe its pain. Without wasting another second, he drove straight to the nearest veterinary hospital. As he rushed inside, the receptionist's eyes widened in surprise. "I need help," Keanu said, his voice urgent yet gentle. "This dog was hit by a biker. He needs immediate care." The vet, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes named Dr. Elena Carter, took one look at the injured dog and nodded. "We'll do everything we can." As the medical team worked on the dog, Keanu paced anxiously outside the treatment room. Minutes felt like hours, and the sight of the helpless creature haunted him. He replayed the moment in his mind. The biker's cold indifference, the dog's fragile body tumbling into the ditch. His fists clenched as he fought back a wave of anger and sorrow. When Dr. Carter finally emerged, she gave him a reassuring smile. "He's badly injured, but he's a fighter," she said. "His leg is broken, and he's severely malnourished, but with proper care, he'll recover." Relief washed over Keanu. "I'll take care of him," he said without hesitation. And just like that, a bond was formed. Over the next few weeks, Keanu devoted himself to the little dog's recovery. He named him Lucky, a fitting name, considering how close he had come to losing his life. Keanu brought Lucky home and set up a cozy space for him in the corner of his living room, complete with a soft blanket and a small stuffed toy he'd picked up on impulse. Every day, he hand-fed him small portions of vet-approved food, changed his bandages, and spoke to him in soothing tones. At first, Lucky was hesitant, flinching at sudden movements and cowering in corners. It broke Keanu's heart to see how much fear and pain the little dog had endured. He would often wake up in the middle of the night to find Lucky whimpering in his sleep, his tiny body trembling as if haunted by past nightmares. Keanu would sit beside him on the floor, gently stroking his fur and whispering reassurances until Lucky calmed down. "I've got you," he'd say softly, his voice a steady anchor in the dark. One rainy afternoon, as the patter of droplets drummed against the windows, Keanu sat cross-legged beside Lucky's bed, reading a script aloud. He wasn't sure why he started doing it. Maybe it was the quiet, maybe it was the need to fill the silence. But Lucky seemed to listen. The dog's ears twitched slightly, and his eyes followed Keanu's every move. When Keanu reached a particularly emotional scene, He noticed Lucky inching closer, his head resting tentatively on Keanu's outstretched leg. It was the first time Lucky had sought him out like that, and Keanu paused, his voice catching. "You like that part, huh?" he said, setting the script aside. He reached down to scratch Lucky's ears, and for a moment, they just sat there, the rain outside a gentle lullaby to their growing trust. One evening, as Keanu sat on the floor beside Lucky's bed, he noticed the dog staring at him with big, soulful eyes. Slowly, Lucky crawled toward him, resting his head against Keanu's knee. For the first time, Keanu felt his throat tighten. It was a silent moment of trust, more powerful than any words could express. "You're safe now, little guy," Keanu whispered, gently rubbing Lucky's ears. "No one's ever going to hurt you again." Tears welled in his eyes as he thought about the life Lucky must have had before, alone, hungry, and scared. He made a silent promise then. Whatever it took, he'd give Lucky the life he deserved. As days turned into weeks, Lucky slowly began to trust again. He wagged his tail whenever he saw Keanu and would hobble toward him despite his injured leg. Keanu found himself growing more and more attached to the scrappy mutt. Every morning, Lucky would wake Keanu by nudging his arm with his cold, wet nose, demanding attention. Keanu would laugh, scratching Lucky behind the ears before carrying him outside for some fresh air. Despite his injuries, Lucky was determined to move, hopping on 3 legs as he followed Keanu around the house. One sunny morning, Keanu decided to take Lucky to a nearby park. He carried him gently in a sling across his chest, letting Lucky feel the warmth of the sun and the soft grass beneath his paws. A group of kids playing nearby noticed them and ran over, their eyes wide with curiosity. "Is he okay?" a little girl with pigtails asked, peering at Lucky's bandaged leg. Keanu smiled. "He's getting there. He's a tough little guy." The kids giggled as Lucky wagged his tail weakly, and one of them offered him a piece of their sandwich. Keanu thanked them, his heart swelling at the simple kindness of strangers. One particular evening, after a long day on set, Keanu returned home exhausted. He flopped onto the couch, sighing heavily. Moments later, he felt a small weight press against his side. Lucky had jumped up and curled beside him, resting his head on Keanu's chest. "You miss me, huh?" Keanu murmured, smiling as he ran his fingers through Lucky's softening fur. The dog let out a content sigh, closing his eyes. Keanu felt a warmth spread through his chest. In that moment, it didn't matter how tiring his day had been. Lucky was safe, and that was all that mattered. He lay there for a while, staring at the ceiling, listening to Lucky's steady breathing. It was the first time in months he felt truly at peace, as if the chaos of the world couldn't touch them here. Keanu even brought Lucky to the film set, where the cast and crew quickly fell in love with the resilient little dog. The once timid stray now had an entire family doting on him. Lucky, in time, seemed to enjoy the attention, basking in the love and warmth he had been deprived of for so long. One day, a young production assistant named MIA brought her guitar to set and strummed a quiet tune during a break. Lucky, who had been napping near Keanu's chair, perked up, his ears twitching. He hobbled over to MIA and sat at her feet, tilting his head as if entranced. The crew laughed, and Keanu snapped a photo, captioning it later on social media, "Lucky's first concert." The post went viral, and fans flooded the comments with messages of support, many sharing their own stories of rescued pets. Keanu read through them late that night, Lucky snoring softly beside him, and felt a pang of gratitude for the unexpected community this little dog had brought into his life. Despite the joy Lucky brought into his life, Keanu couldn't shake the anger he felt toward the biker who had left the dog for dead. He knew he couldn't just let it go. Justice needed to be served. Determined to find the culprit, Keanu reached out to an old friend, Detective Marcus Bennett, a seasoned police officer who had worked on several hit-and-run cases before. "Marcus, I need your help," Keanu said, explaining the situation over coffee one morning. His voice trembled slightly as he recounted the incident, the memory still raw. "That guy needs to be held accountable." Marcus nodded, his expression serious. "I'll see what I can find." With Marcus's connections and Keanu's determination, They managed to track down security footage from nearby traffic cameras. The footage revealed a license plate number, leading them to a known troublemaker named Rick Jensen, a man with a history of reckless driving and animal cruelty complaints. Confronting him wasn't going to be easy, but Keanu wasn't about to back down. For days, Marcus and his fellow officers built a solid case against Rick. They gathered witness statements, analyzed traffic data, and consulted local shelters that had previously reported complaints against him. Marcus pushed hard to ensure that no loophole would allow Rick to escape justice. Keanu visited Marcus at the station one evening, bringing Lucky along in a small carrier. The officers gathered around, petting Lucky gently as Keanu watched, a mix of pride and resolve in his eyes. "This is why we're doing this," he said quietly to Marcus, who nodded. "We'll get him, Keanu." For Lucky. One evening, with Marcus by his side, Keanu knocked on Rick's door. The man sneered when he saw them. "What do you want?" Rick scoffed. "I don't have time for this." Keanu's expression was calm but firm. "You hit a dog and left it to die. That's not something I can ignore." Rick rolled his eyes. "It's just a stray. Who cares?" Keanu clenched his jaw, his voice steady but laced with emotion. "I care, and so does the law." Marcus stepped forward. "We have footage of you fleeing the scene. That's enough to press charges." Rick's smug expression faltered. "Look, man, I didn't mean to." "No excuses," Keanu interrupted, his tone sharp. "You need to take responsibility." With the evidence against him, Rick was soon arrested for reckless driving and animal cruelty. Marcus had worked tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure that the case wouldn't be dismissed. As they left the station, Keanu looked at Marcus with gratitude. "Thanks, man. This means everything." Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. "You did the right thing." Meanwhile, Keanu took to social media to share Lucky's story, using his platform to raise awareness about animal welfare. He posted a video of Lucky's first wobbly steps after his cast came off, narrating it with a quiet, heartfelt message. This little guy almost didn't make it, but is proof that love and second chances can heal anything. His story inspired thousands, and soon, donations poured into local shelters, helping countless other strays find loving homes. Keanu visited one of those shelters a week later, bringing Lucky along. The staff greeted them warmly, and Keanu spent the afternoon playing with the other dogs, his laughter mingling with their barks. Lucky stayed close, his tail wagging as if he understood the impact he'd made. A volunteer handed Keanu a thank you note from a family who'd adopted a dog because of his post, and he read it aloud to Lucky later that night, his voice thick with emotion. The day Lucky was finally strong enough to run again was one of the happiest days of Keanu's life. He took him to the beach at sunrise, the sand cool beneath their feet. Lucky hesitated at first, sniffing the air, then took off, awkwardly at first, then with growing confidence, chasing the waves as they lapped at the shore. Keanu ran alongside him, laughing as the little dog barked at the water, his tail a blur of joy. They collapsed together in the sand, breathless and happy, the horizon stretching endlessly before them. The little dog, once broken and abandoned, was now full of life, his tail wagging furiously as he chased after Keanu on set later that day. As the sun set over the Hollywood skyline, Keanu knelt beside Lucky, ruffling his fur. "We made it, buddy," he said softly, his voice breaking slightly. "And this is just the beginning." That night, Keanu sat on his porch with Lucky curled up beside him, the city lights twinkling below. He thought about the journey they'd been on, the pain, the healing, the unexpected love, and felt a quiet certainty settle in his chest. Lucky wasn't just a rescue. He was a reminder of why kindness mattered, why fighting for the vulnerable was worth it. As a shooting star streaked across the sky, Keanu made a wish, not for himself, but for Lucky, for every stray still out there, waiting for someone to care. He leaned down, pressing his forehead to Lucky's, and whispered, "You're my hero. You know that." Lucky licked his hand, and Keanu smiled, knowing they'd saved each other.